When the Sun Darkens. Orbital History and 2040 AD Return of Planet Phoenix by Jason M. Breshears. Read by Kevin Stevens, also known as Grendel Dark. Chapter 9. 2040 AD Return of Planet Phoenix. It shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord God, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon, and I will darken the earth on a clear day. Amos 8:9. The human mind is incapable of manufacturing the synchronicity demonstrated throughout this work of chronology. No singular act of brilliance created this timeline just to compose this book. It was merely by this author discovered, not invented. Only a greater intellect is able to achieve this level of historical coherency, and only because history was written and planned before it began. This is noted by the prophet Isaiah, who wrote that God declared the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done. The Christian apocryphal text of Barnabas reasserts this, reading that, "The Lord hath declared unto us, by the prophets, those things which are past, and opened us the beginnings of those things that are to come." By now, it should be evident that the framework of history is through the repetition of cycles involving cataclysms, and that the calendar is found out both backward and forward in time, not by a study of individual years, but by cycles of years, like the Phoenix cycle of 552 years, or the cursed Earth periods of 414 years, both having their ultimate origin with an actual astronomical cycle that links these together mathematically. The series of historical occurrence had predictive value for those that follow, a fact recognized also by the late Lewis Mumford in his monumental work Technics and Civilization, wherein he wrote that the past that is already dead remains present in the future that has yet to be born. This sentiment was popularized also by one of the founding fathers of this nation, Patrick Henry, who stated, "I have no way of judging the future but by the past." That the future was never meant to be known is a modern fiction perpetrated by those who don't know it. Knowledge filters have been cast over the truth by our greatest institutions of learning, and history has been concealed by those invested with the responsibility to reveal it. Our learned predecessor Pliny lamented this condition when he remarked that nothing is being added to the sum of knowledge as a result of original research, and that today's researchers ignore the findings of those that preceded them. Though made almost 2,000 years ago, this statement is equally true today. Contemporary writers put out a plethora of books that cover virtually all of the same topics, repeating over and again in different ways what every other author dictates. And yet none of these works serve to provide readers with definite knowledge of where they live in the timelines operable today. Although this author is a Christian, he is only one in the original sense. I take serious issue with today's theologians and pulpit prophets who imprison the mind while they act as orators of the highest degree, uttering many fine things without themselves believing or understanding what they say. These modern men of the cloth are learned in all sorts of high matters, their pretense of specific knowledge overshadowing their wisdom, and they make themselves masters of cloaking shameful acts in fine words, as Herodotus lamented, masking their confusion and lack of knowledge in Latin terms and seemingly advanced doctrines, with the authority of institutions that have financial interests in the church that supersede the accurate diffusion of truth. Histories found to be offensive are ignored, and for this reason, knowledge filters are erected to prevent discoveries that would shatter or compromise prevailing paradigms that currently govern over the minds of men. The attitude of concealing information from the public domain is an archaic trend that antedates even the stone tablet excavated from among the ruins of Nineveh in Assyria, Iraq, once belonging to the scholar king Ashurbanipal. The wise shall teach it to the wise, the unlearned shall not see it. Religion has become the greatest tool for social conditioning and control, alienating people from the knowledge of the future by keeping them chained to the present. Cities rise and fall. Nations are plundered, assimilated into other governments. Empires are born and fragment, but religions continue through it all. But because the time of the end is a fixed date, the mechanics of apocalypse set in motion long, long ago, and because the vast majority of mankind are but slaves to their predispositions and earthly passions, the unveiling of these truths would not make a substantial difference in the outcome of these events upon civilization. However, we must concede that on a personal level, the acquisition of future information can promote great change. Thomas Burgoyne, Christian mystic and occultist in the 1880s, supports this, having written that knowledge alone is the great liberator of human suffering, our spiritual growth and free will increasing in proportion to our knowledge. Now, imagine a stone tablet writing preserved in an extinct language from distant antiquity, a relic buried beneath the desert waste of Iraq, Assyria of old, for over 25 centuries. This artifact is found, and years later it is translated. Its content concerning the destruction of the world before our own began, and that is the method of ruination was by the close proximity to the earth of objects in space. When they pass the earth, they bear gloom from city to city, a tempest that furiously scours the heavens, a dense cloud that brings gloom over the sky, a rushing wind gust, casting darkness over the bright day. These texts name the Anunnaki as being responsible for these mysterious objects. The text is from the Enuma Elish, as learned previously. These tablets were translated into English in 1902, the last appearance of planet Phoenix in the inner solar system, when extraterrestrial rains of dense dust clouds and mud fell by the tons around the world. The year a strange comet appeared and was named Morehouse, an object that orbited Phoenix. This was 138 years after its last appearance in 1764 AD, when Phoenix transited partially and was seen by astronomer Hoffman to have covered 1/5 of the sun's surface. Pieces of Phoenix cast shadows on Earth in 1762 and 1763. This appearance was 138 years after Phoenix passed unseen in the year that New York was founded, which happened to be the final year of the entire Phoenix cycle system of 552-year periods. The reader was asked earlier in this book to recall two facts. First was the founding of New York in 1626 AD, and the second was that the Phoenix cycle system that began in 3895 BC with the appearance of Phoenix as a fiery flaming sword was antedated by 414 years to the year 4309 BC, when the pre-Adamic world was destroyed, thereby beginning our 138-year Phoenix orbit history. It was this pre-Adamic ruin that the Enuma Elish records recount. In 1902, the cursed Earth system of 414-year periods ended, but as the past forms a predicate for the future, of necessity do we suffix the Phoenix cycle timeline that ended in 1626 with a cursed Earth period of 414 years, just as this system was preceded by such a cursed Earth period. The Phoenix cycle of 552 years began and ends with a 414-year period. The date in the future, 414 years after the end of the Phoenix cycle, is 2040 AD. This forward and backwards concept was brought to the attention of the scientific world in the year 1902 AD with the discovery of the Antikythera computer, and 138 years before 1902 AD was when Hoffman witnessed Phoenix through a telescope, and others all over Europe saw it with the naked eye in 1764 AD. 138 years after 1902 is the fateful year of 2040 AD. In 1902 AD, the Fuller Building was erected in New York, an architectural anomaly and landmark shaped like a triangle in the same year that the Giza course countdown begins to count upward through the masonry's 204 levels of stone to the year 6000. The Great Pyramid is a three-dimensional triangle serving as Earth's landmark, and also encodes the precise year of 6000 by its angles. The angular slope of the pyramid's four faces is 51 degrees. And 51 degrees times four faces of the monument is 204 degrees, mirroring the 204 levels of stone from 1902 to 2106 AD, 6000 AM. The pyramid shape has been associated with the tetractys, a series of 10 dots forming a triangle. As the ancients believed the monuments represented the sum of 10, we can multiply this 10 by the 204 levels of degrees to arrive at a calendrical year of 2040, 204 times 10. In our case, this is 2040 Anno Domini. New York City is a symbol of technological industrial civilization, of vice and vanity and multiculturalism. Founded in 1626 AD, exactly one cursed Earth period before 2040 AD. The Fuller Building and many other events of 1902 AD count down one Phoenix orbit of 138 years to 2040 AD. Two archaic calendars have ended, both marking through cycles of periodic catastrophes that afflict mankind. All of history is a modular study of the future, but in order to authenticate the practical value of the past, it is imperative that we already know the future. It is not sufficient enough to speculate about what is coming merely based off of what has transpired. This is the domain of prophets. It is through the relationship of spiritual giants who have received knowledge of the future and recorded it for posterity that we can verify the accuracy of cyclic timelines. We have this proof in the form of prophecies such as that written by Amos, that in the distant future God would darken the earth on a clear day. New York City has been the financial, political, cultural, and international epicenter of the United States, and by extension, the world. A cityscape of gigantic towers like the Fuller Building in the early 20th century, as well as the Empire State Building and later World Trade Center towers. Even the United Nations seat is currently at New York. As the once mighty empires long ago changed their official seals and standards from the phoenix to the eagle before their decline and ultimate end, so too has America followed this precedence. In 2040 AD, New York City, at the closure of the cursed Earth period that began with its founding in 1626, will be totally destroyed. Not only New York, but many cities around the world will fall in ruins when Phoenix returns to the inner system and nearly collides into Earth. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, and the heavens departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. Revelation 6:12-14. It is the seals of the apocalyptic book of the Revelation that serve here as the science of prophecy that collaborates the research on Planet Phoenix, a study that began with winged disc seals on early Mesopotamian cylinders and tablets. Planet Phoenix's appearance in 2040 AD concludes the period of the seven seals, the seventh seal being a time of silence and preparation of the seven trumpet judgments. What is disturbing here is that this cataclysmic episode transpires at the end of a terribly chaotic period at the start of the apocalypse, meaning, and quite clearly, that the deceptions, wars, genocide, plagues, starvation, famines, and persecutions of true believers that develop in the first five seals have already begun before 2040 AD. This is a sobering thought, but the most dreadful period to live through in history is about to begin, and humanity as a whole is completely oblivious to this impending global chaos. As it is nearing 2010 AD, we are at the threshold even now, with there being only 30 more years until the end of the seven seals of the apocalypse. In 2040 AD, Phoenix will initiate a planetary destruction and pole shift, this final appearance of the fragmenting planet mirroring only its first appearance when it resulted in the destruction of the pre-Adamic world in 4309 BC, precisely one cursed earth period of 414 years before man's banishment from Eden in 3895 BC. Thus, this visitation of Phoenix is the colophonic end that refers back to the beginning, just as olden Mesopotamian tablet writings reiterated their final statements in cuneiform, reflecting back to the first statement in the tablet text. Phoenix darkened the sun or affected Earth several times in its orbital history, but only the first and last appearance result in cataclysms so horrific. The return of Phoenix in the last days is a theme repeated in the annals of prophecy. In the Book of Enoch, we learn that the patriarchal prophet was shown a vision of the future when the pillar, axis of earth shook from its foundation, and a sound was heard from the extremities of the earth. About 18 centuries later, the psalmist wrote, "Therefore we will not fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea." To declare such a faith implies that in some remote epoch of human experience, the earth had indeed undergone some major changes. That the biblical evidence for planet Phoenix cannot be easily disregarded can be seen in the obscurely dated biblical book of Job. Scholars are at variance over the antiquity of this text, some claiming it is truly ancient, while all conclude it is one of the oldest books in the Bible. The text reads, "I would seek unto God, and unto God would I commit my cause, which doeth great things and unsearchable, marvelous things, without number. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the forward is carried headlong. They meet with darkness in the daytime, and grope in the noonday as in at night." Job 5, 8-9 and 13-14. Isaiah was a prolific writer on the future apocalypse, writing that, "The stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light, and the sun shall be darkened in its goings forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall be removed out of her place." He also wrote that the Lord maketh the earth empty, and maketh it waste. He turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad its inhabitants thereof. The prophet Ezekiel provides us even more detail in confirmation of this thesis. He wrote that God said, "I will cover the heaven, and make the stars thereof dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. And all the bright stars over heaven shall I make dark over thee." This is no ordinary cloud, but as we were shown in 1902, this is a vast, expansive cosmic dust cloud derived from Phoenix detritus as the planet continues to fragment. The prophet Joel not only reconfirms this future event, but even provides a clue as to the timing. "The earth shall quake before them, the heavens shall tremble, the earth and moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire, and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. The day of the Lord is Armageddon, the return of the chief cornerstone, and this is also a fixed time, being the year 6000 Annus Mundi, 2106 AD. So we see here that the sixth seal judgment on human civilization involving planet Phoenix is 66 years before the end. As this is a study on cycles of historic events and their predictive value, we find it curious that 66 years before 2040 AD was 1974, when the Sears Tower was finished in Chicago, becoming the world's tallest building, again a feat of human architectural engineering. 1974 also being the year that the Chinese silk texts were discovered, writings recording many historical disasters. But 1974 was also 66 years after the devastating 1908 explosion of a comet fragment over Tunguska, Siberia, that knocked down hundreds of thousands of trees and even people standing 100 miles away. Also in 1908, a terrible quake with a tsunami killed 120,000 people at Messina, Sicily. As the Tunguska comet fell out of the sky, so too, 66 years earlier, in 1842, hailstones rained near Nimes, France, that were orange-colored and determined to have contained nitric acid. What initiates this amazing 66-year cycle is the start of the United States in 1776 AD, the nation of the last days that would show the world its seal of the Great Pyramid, with the chief cornerstone descending upon it as the all-seeing eye, which would arrive in 2106 AD, 6000 AM. For those seeking a more definite picture of what will occur in 2040 AD, when Phoenix nearly collides into our own world, see Appendix A in this book, or read this author's work entitled Chronicon, a vast chronology of the world assimilating all the known calendars of old and today, serving to put back the pieces of knowledge from around the world, so the reader can clearly see the future through the glass of the past. And not just a future, but as Firmicus Maternus noted, even the very beginning of Earth and history is detected by the unfolding of historical events that later transpired. The knowledge of the future was specifically designed by God to be discovered in the end times, the last days, for by peering intently into the near future do we more clearly see the past. As is revealed in the Gospel of Thomas, those who can decipher the beginning will know the end. God reveals his greatest mysteries retrospectively, for with the advantage of hindsight can we perceive a more absolute picture of the past operations of providence at work in human affairs. But the future is not an impenetrable veil, nor a temple we cannot enter, for there are those among men gifted to see beyond the present fabric of reality, reaching into history not yet attained to grasp secrets from the future they are permitted to bring back to the present. These are they whom understand that a plan requires a planner, and they comprehend their own place within the divine scheme as truly being timeless. The savants of today, connected in spirit to the past, know fully that knowledge is accumulative and never begins with nothing, and is never bequeathed to only one individual. What good is knowledge, then, if only one man knows? An old saying, not this author's, but no less true today. We all learn through each other and build our foundation of information upon the discoveries of former students of curiosity and learning. It is our duty to add to this accumulation of knowledge, to take from it that which does not belong, and to repair it with accurate information. What we know, we inherit. For knowledge is all we take with us when leaving the material existence. Knowledge is the only experience benefiting the human spirit. Everything else worked for by man perishes with the body. The day approaches when every contributor will be given a stone, identifying themselves that will be placed within the structure of divinity, and in the end, there will be left a perfect temple for God to reside in, an edifice of colossal proportions containing eternal living stones, redeemed humanity, possessing divine knowledge, for what we learn in this life and apply will be an inheritance amplified exponentially by God. We are merely leaves in the book of life. When God refashions his tree of elect souls to make his eternal tome, pray that you will be found an adequate building material useful for his everlasting plan. At the end of this work, Appendix B is provided for those seeking a concise review of several legends and myths involving the darkening of the sun, all referring, no doubt, to the Phoenix phenomenon or comet transits. Because they are merely legends, they are not attached in the study to any of the exact dates previously detailed, though they may all be related. But first, there are many other solaric anomalies and astronomical events to review relative to Phoenix. These are disclosed in the following 2 chapters. The first concerns the Joshua Comet Group, and the second is the Vials of Phoenix Comet Group. Both trains of cometary debris are strewn fields having their origin as glacial fragments that long ago broke free of the surface of Phoenix and entered their own solar orbits.